Hello
Again,
again.
I'm Jeremy, park ranger here at Klondike Gold Rush National Historical Park. Here today, I'm in the Junior Ranger Activity Center. Have you ever made it into this building before?
Yes, with great-grandchildren.
Oh, fantastic. So they're junior rangers, I would hope?
Yes, of course.
Oh, perfect. All right. And so what I had planned today was kind of a Gold Rush charades. So this should be pretty cool. We can all kind of get up out of our chairs maybe and act out some words throughout the story of the Klondike Gold Rush. If that sounds good, if you all are into it. Fantastic. And so, yeah, kind of what we're going to do. I'm going to see if I can send people kind of direct messages. And yeah, I'll just pick one of you folks here and see if I can send you a message. And I'm going to send you a word to act out. And just so you know, they are pretty simple. They're all just single words. So nothing too complicated, right? So let's see here. Does anyone want to be the first to go? Or I can also be the first to go just to break the ice. Tracy, you'll go? Perfect. All right, I'm going to see if I can send you a message in the chat. Perfect. And your word. All right, so Tracy, I just sent you a message in the chat with the word that I want you to act out.
Okay, should I act it out now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
And we'll try to, Jenny and Jennifer, you can try and guess it out.
Digging.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that'll be acceptable, right?
Good
dig,
job.
right? And so it's not exactly accurate as far as how the gold was discovered during the Klondike Gold Rush. There's multiple discovery stories, but most of the ones I've heard shared were stories that actually give credit to one of four people, either George Carmack, the only white man present in the group, his wife, Kate Carmack, who is a Tagish First Nations woman, her name was Shaw Claw, or her brother, Case Skookum Jim, or their cousin, Dawson Charlie, or Ka Gook, as I believe is how his name is pronounced in Tagish. And I've actually got some photos here I can share with you all just to, oh, only hosts can share. Good to know, perfect.
I can make you, I can make it so that you can share.
Perfect.
I think.
And if not, that's cool too. It's a good learning experience.
Okay, so I think you should be able to do it now.
Perfect. Fantastic. All right, can everybody see that okay?
Oh, yeah.
All right, and so from left to right, there we're looking at Case Skookum Jim, Kate Carmack, Shot Claw, her husband George Carmack, and on the far right, that is Dawson Charlie. And so, you know, there's multiple stories that give each of those individuals the credit for being the one who discovered the gold. We're not really sure who, but we do know that word spread pretty rapidly across the region of Alaska and Canada, and eventually the entire globe. And before we make our way into that part of the story, Jenny, since you guessed that word correctly, I'm going to send you a message here with your word to act out for us.
Okay.
And this one This one might be a little more difficult.
Oh,
We'll see here. And if you need any help, you just let us know. All right, there we go. All right, so I sent you that message. It should pop up in your chat if you
I
can
got it.
find that.
I
Perfect.
got it.
All right. And tell us how many words it is. And
One word.
just perfect. Go into it.
You're opening something?
Mm-hmm.
Opening a book? I guess it's one word. Reading.
Book is close.
Yeah, that's close. It is a noun. I'll give you that much.
You're looking? Does it rhyme with book?
Mm-mm.
Oh boy.
And I've got a timer going here too, so we're
Newspaper?
not gonna. That's it. Perfect.
Newspaper, good job.
Got it.
Tracy.
Fantastic. And so, yeah, it's pretty interesting, right? During this era, people were largely going to get their news one way, and that's largely through the newspaper. But comparing that to modern day, you can just shout out answers. How many different ways can you think of that news can spread, that you can share information?
Online.
Online, right? And that's things like what, social media,
Mhm.
newspapers are online now. Any other ways?
Radio?
Radio, yep.
Television.
Television. Yeah, and it
Mouth
just
to mouth.
kind of
Word of
mouth
mouth.
to mouth, word of mouth, right? So
Mhm.
generally, there is greatly, well, that was horrible grammar. There's a immensely larger number of ways that information is spread today. And considering how rapidly it spread during the gold rush, just with word of mouth and newspapers, that's pretty amazing. And I think that kind of is a testament to how big of a deal this was, right? Because almost a full year passed in between the discovery of gold on August 16th, 1896, and August of 1897, or July of 1897, when the steamers Portland and Excelsior each arrived in Seattle and San Francisco, carrying about a ton of gold apiece. And from that point, across the globe, the headlines across the globe were all going to have that same headline of gold in the Klondike, and they're going to motivate a lot of people to make their way north to Alaska and Canada during the gold rush. And over about a 2-year period, it's estimated that about 100,000 people attempted that journey north. Not nearly all of them made it to their destination, however. Only about 30,000 people made it all the way to Dawson City and the site of the gold fields. But with that, Jennifer, do you think you'd want to do our next word?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right, I'm going to send you that message. And just so you all do know, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but I do have my timer going. So we're going to each get like a minute or so to act these out.
Okay. Get ready for some great acting skills, y'all.
All right. All right, there you go. Should have sent it. This should be a good one.
I knew going third was going to be the most challenging, right? Okay.
Heavy.
Yes,
Ding ding.
that's it. Exactly, right? Heavy, perfect, right? And so during the rush, whenever people would make their way from Seattle up the Inside Passage to Skagway, they were not going to just be bringing themselves along. they were going to be bringing with them 1 full year's worth of supplies because the Canadian government had this requirement, this official law, that if you wanted to cross the border, you had to bring those provisions with you just to be able to sustain yourself on your journey north to Dawson, but also to sustain you when you finally made it to Dawson to make it through the winter. Because, you know, we all spend time in Alaska here. I'm sure we're pretty aware that winters can be pretty brutal, right? Especially up in the interior. And so they were bringing those supplies that would weigh in at about 2,000 pounds. And so those folks, they were going to be making multiple trips over either the Chilkoot Trail or the White Pass Trail. And the Chilkoot Trail, it has more of a reputation as being a backpacker's route, just because it was very steep, right? And I've got a photo here to share as well. One that I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with. But can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Right. And so this is why the Chilkoot Trail kind of has that reputation, because you can't really load up pack animals and have them carry your supplies up this steep mountain pass. And so this steep section here, this is also the one section of trail that really put a lot of people off of taking the Chilkoot. A lot of other people chose to leave from Skagway and take the White Pass Trail. And the White Pass Trail is popular largely just because the fact that you could use pack animals the entirety of your trip in an ideal world anyway. And so, you know, those animals, the horses, oxen, they were there to kind of help shoulder that load. And so that kind of leads us into the next word. Go ahead and say this is probably going to be either the most comedic word, you know, it's probably the most fun, but I'm going to give it to you here since you guessed correctly. So just let me send you this in the chat here. Library.
Are you sending it to me?
Yes.
Okay.
Just sent it. I'll go ahead and tell everybody this is a noun, right? So person, place, or thing, and you can start whenever.
Okay.
Are you a horse?
Yes, it is horse. Fantastic. Perfect. Yeah, right. And so, again, you know, just the White Pass Trail, it was popular because of the fact that people could use those pack animals. And so, you know, use, that's kind of a relative term. You could also say that these animals were abused along that route. The White Pass, it also has the infamous nickname, the Dead Horse Trail, because for a lot of these pack animals, coming up here was essentially a one-way journey. And so by the end of the rush, there were about 3,000 horses that were going to be left behind on that trail. Right? But whichever trail you chose, you were going to make your way to Lake Bennett. But is Lake Bennett Dawson City? Right? Is that their end destination? Yeah, right. How far away is it, Grandma Jenny? Do you know?
Like 450 miles, something like that.
Yeah, right. 450, 500 miles still away from the site of the goldfields up in Dawson. And so once they got there, they were going to be spending their winter waiting on the lakes to kind of thaw out. And so that's going to lead us into our next word. Jennifer or Grandma Jenny, would you be willing to do this one, Jenny?
Sure, I'll try.
I'm going to send you this one here in a private message. It's let's see. All right, sent it.
Hmm.
So it might be a little difficult.
This is a noun. Okay. Oh.
A
Mine. Oh,
paddle,
no, it's a
canoe,
noun.
I'm not hearing what people say.
canoe, boat, paddler, boat.
Yep, there you go, perfect. Perfect, right? And so from Lake Bennett, the rest of the travel to Dawson City, that was gonna be over water travel, right? Via Lake Bennett and the Yukon River. As Grandma Jenny said, another 450 to 500 miles to Dawson. But those boats were not waiting there at Lake Bennett when they arrived. And so most people were gonna be spending the entire winter attempting to build a boat. But show of hands, how many of us have ever built a boat before in our lives? Nothing, right? None of us. And so for a lot of people coming up during the rush, they were having that same realization that they were now going to have to build a boat, even though they didn't necessarily have the skills to do so. But in the spring of 1898, after Lake Bennett thawed out, over 7,000 crafts leave Lake Bennett to set out for Dawson City. And that's all within a matter of days of one another. And so it was going to be a pretty treacherous journey. Along the way, though, the Canadian government, they did have stations kind of along the way where they had Mounties stationed. And they were there to inspect your boat, make sure that it was safe enough to make the journey, and also just to keep track of the number of people that were coming through the area, just to make sure that people were, making the trip. And they would also, at the beginning of your journey, collect your name, also the name of your next of kin, just in case they needed to contact someone if you were lost. But as we said, of the 100,000 people that started the trip, only about 30,000 people actually made it to Dawson City. And so most of the people, once they finally arrived there, were pretty disappointed with the conditions that they found because they arrived to find that they were largely all too late to find gold. Most of the paying claims had already been staked. A lot of the gold that was easiest to get had already been got. And yeah, so most people would have just taken a job working on a claim for someone else, just trying to save up passage for money back home. But that leads us kind of into our last word. This one's a little more broad, but Jennifer, since you guessed that word correctly, I'm gonna send you this word in the chat and you can act it out for us. There we go.
Okay.
This one's just kind of fun.
Cold.
Yep, exactly. That's it. Perfect.
Oh,
And so, yeah. And so in Dawson City, again, as we said, the conditions, they were very harsh. It was very cold winters up there. And it was not easy living over the winter as well. There's stories of food shortages throughout Dawson, especially at the early onset of the rush. But just making it to Dawson did not mean that the struggle was necessarily over because it was a very difficult environment to live in. But we've now completed the journey from Discovery to Dawson. And so if you folks have any questions, feel free to ask anything you're curious about.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Bee Lingle has told this story about her, I think it was her grandfather, maybe her great-grandfather, who came here. And he was a bookkeeper. he
Yeah.
never should have tried this horrible trip. But when he got here, there was a need for bookkeepers, so he never went any further.
Oh yeah, just got to Skagway and stayed, huh?
Yeah, had a job. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that story, Grandma Jenny. I had no idea. I mean, I knew her family had been here since the beginning with the
Mhm.
Gold Rush history, but see, those are the kind of stories that I really want to hear about and collect too. So
Yeah, really great to hear those first kind of, not firsthand, but those accounts of people that have that history here. That's really amazing.
Right.
But yeah. And as far as people coming to Skagway and just kind of staying here, I've also read, it might have been in Klondike Fever by Pierre Burton. Can't remember which book it was. But there's a story of a man, he arrived to Skagway and just could tell right away that the conditions were too harsh. And so he ended up buying a restaurant, which was actually just this kind of tent shack. And he sold pancakes. And he bought the restaurant in the morning, sold enough pancakes to buy his ticket back home, and then sold the restaurant that afternoon. And was ready to go back to Seattle. So it's, I don't know, it's a pretty unique time in our history for sure. But yeah, any other comments or questions?
I can't imagine living in this valley in the winter in a tent.
Oh yeah.
They must
That's
have
amazing.
always been cold.
Oh, I'm sure. I think it'd also be interesting too, just to look at the hillside, because a lot of the building that was going on at the time, and also just for firewood, I'm sure there were way less trees
Yes.
here in this valley as well.
Yeah.
Really amazing. Well, that's all the content I have prepared. But thanks so much for sticking around, and thanks for showing up, Jenny. It's amazing to have you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and
I just saw it online like 5 to 3.
Perfect.
we caught
So-
you just in time.
So
Yeah.
is this every Thursday? I mean, what's today? Wednesday?
Today's Wednesday, and then it will be again in 2 weeks. So not next Wednesday, but the following Wednesday.
Following Wednesday with the same link?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah,
yeah,
for
thanks.
sure.
Thanks so much, Skagway.
And thank you for letting us join in.
And thanks, Ranger Jeremy. That was very interesting. And I'll definitely share this recording on the Haines Library's website too, because I think that we'll have a lot of people who are interested in it. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah, and Tracy, if you could share that my way, if we
I
have
will.
a way of sharing it over in Skagway, that'd be great.
You got it. Mhm.
Thanks.